The findings of BHP's long-awaited internal review are expected to be revealed tomorrow. It's believed Newcastle's steelworks will be hardest hit by savage cost-cutting measures, with speculation the two blast furnaces and coke ovens will close within 3 years.
What it'll mean is probably 2,000 jobs, so we'll have 1,000, probably 800 left there, and that'll also mean the demise of a lot of contractors, so it's probably 3,000 jobs.
The AWU claims the ripple effect could be far-reaching, saying retrenchments at the plant back in 1983 added a 3% rise to the city's unemployment figure.
I believe it'll probably put another 2% on, so therefore Newcastle will be stuck with 5% above the national average.
The AWU is urging members to fight the big Australian. A mass meeting on Friday will vote on possible nationwide industrial action. The union claims BHP's long-term plans spell disaster for Australia's steel-making industry.
The noises we're hearing from BHP is they'll still be in steel, but they'll import it from Southeast Asia. And we believe they're Australian jobs that should be kept in Australia.
He's been sidelined all season with an ankle injury, but the good news is that he's almost right to return. Andrew Johns has been training well with the Knights for the last couple of weeks. It's expected he'll be given the green light to play on Saturday. Brother Matthew may need another week, and despite continuing ankle problems for Adam McDougall and Leo Denver, the rest of the side is fit. Lee Jackson has pulled up well after a back spasm that forced him from the field yesterday. So too the Knights' 5 country origin reps, but the veterans and rookies alike admit 2 games in 3 days wasn't easy.
I probably used to be all right when I was about 10 years younger, but pushing 31 at the moment, a little bit difficult.
Mate, I'm struggling as well. I might as well be 31 myself. I mean, I felt fine before the game, but I'd see you now, I could sleep for a couple of days, I'm gone.
Gidley again impressed in the battle of the young 5'8". The Knights youngster outplayed his opposite, Trent Barrett.
I was happy with how I played. I mean, I didn't go into the game sort of thinking, to get on top. I just want to go out and sort of, point the boys around a bit and sort of worry about winning the game more than getting on top of him.
Newcastle plays Gold Coast this weekend.
I'm looking forward to it and reasonably confident.
Captain Paul Harrigan will be there after the ARL's Video Review Committee decided no further action was necessary after Chiefs' 2 big hits on Mark Carroll and Colin Ward.
The Newcastle Legal Centre is well known for its investigations into cases considered closed. A review of evidence into the death of Stockton teenager Lee saw the police service launch an independent inquiry into claims more people than those charged were involved in her death. Now the Legal Centre, which is part of Newcastle University, has taken on the case of 26-year-old Muswellbrook man Paul Green, shot dead by 2 Drug Enforcement Agency officers in September last year during a raid on an Islington house. Coroner Derek Hand found the shooting was justified and carried out in the course of duty. He found Paul Green was armed and the officers shot him to protect themselves. That finding outraged Paul Green's parents, who believed their son wasn't armed. The Greens have refused to bury their son, and over the weekend a second autopsy was carried out on the body. The Legal Centre will look at the results of that examination and the rest of the evidence presented to the coroner before deciding whether to push for a further inquiry. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
.48-year-old Roy Hearn said that since a meeting with manager Richard Porteous in late '95, he often kept a watch for water in the 2 sections where the disaster occurred. That meeting discussed the future of the mine and the possibility of extending work into the old section of the Wallsend mine. However, Mr Porteous was reportedly concerned about the presence of water and gas and quickly dumped the idea. Despite his comments, no action was taken to inform inform other miners of the manager's concerns. Mr Hearn says water is a fact of life at the Gretley Colliery, with miners often working in damp conditions and some even needing raincoats for their shift. However, he says if he had spotted a considerable amount of water in one of the sections, he would have evacuated men from the mine and investigated the location of the old workings. Mr Hearn claimed there was no discussion of water seepage the day before the fatal accident. The hearing is continuing. Jenny Crouch, NBN News.
Like many regional communities, Raymond Terrace has watched as millions of dollars drain out of the town into big metropolitan shopping complexes. Now it's to have one of its own. A consortium, including retail giant Big W, will spend $25 million building the 2-hectare Raymond Terrace marketplace on council-owned land near the centre of town.
We believe that the long-term viability of Raymond Terrace is assured by this sort of development.
The development will mean the loss of 1.25 hectares of playing fields in the inner city. However, the council says it will use some of the proceeds from the sale of the land to develop the nearby Lakeside Village sporting complex. The retail complex will create 350 jobs during construction and 550 full and part-time positions when it opens. However, not everyone is happy with the development. While the Big W department store has been welcomed, existing retailers fear they won't be able to compete with the new specialty stores.
The 40 shops will only come from new businesses, which will probably be at the expense of some of the old ones, or it'll be a relocation of existing ones, which will mean more empty stores out in the streets.
Contracts for the sale of the shopping centre site are to be exchanged next month. It's expected Raymond Terrace Marketplace will be open by late next year. Phil Hind, NBN News. The current state budget allocates $101,000 to the Raymond Terrace Police Station this year, money to begin planning a promised new 3-storey modern headquarters to be completed by 1999. According to the opposition, with just a month to go to the end of the financial year, virtually none of the money has been spent.
To me it says that there are other plans afoot, that there is a strong likelihood that they will be taking that money and using it elsewhere in the Hunter and not spending it here on Raymond Terrace.
The existing police station is spread out across a number of separate buildings joined by connecting walkways. The state opposition describes conditions as cramped and inadequate. The chairman of the Coalition's Parliamentary Police Committee, Mike Gallagher, believes the lack of progress on a new station confirms speculation that Raymond Terrace will be absorbed into a new Maitland-Cessnock Regional Patrol centred in Maitland.
In fact, Raymond Terrace will become merely a sector, and that is also of concern, the fact that as it is undermined in terms of its importance, so too is a potential for resources to be stripped away.
Mr Gallagher says if a new police station isn't built, it will also mean the government's promise of 24-hour policing for Raymond Terrace will have been jettisoned. A spokesperson for Police Minister Paul Whelan responded that the needs of Raymond Terrace are being reassessed in light of the current police force restructuring. Phil Hind, NBN News.
No, these are not disabled people, but students from Newcastle University's Recreation and Tourism course, learning about the needs of the disabled. Under the watchful eye of basketball Paralympian gold medalist Fabian Blattman, the group has learned firsthand the realities and challenges faced every day by the disabled.
This is a really big market. There's 18% of the population in Australia that have a disability, and as such that's a big market that they could tap into to provide services for, to market a particular destination that are physical accessible.
It's just one disability covered in the course.
Next week we're going to look at people that have a visual impairment, and we'll have the Royal Blind Society coming in to give a guest lecture about that. Then the following week we have intellectual disabilities, and then we have mental illness.
After getting the feel of a wheelchair, students hit the court for what was a low-scoring game. The gold medalist is happy to see tertiary students learning the problems encountered by the disabled.
If they have an understanding what the challenges are, hopefully they can formulate sort of systems that will better accommodate those people with disabilities.
Chris Bradley's star is rising, albeit slowly. The beefy shortstop has played all 3 seasons with the Eagles. Before that, he spent more than a decade honing his skills in junior baseball. After a successful season with the Hunter Eagles, Bradley is on the verge of national selection.
Very excited, yeah. Very pleased that I've got the opportunity, and with a bit of luck I'll go all right and take full advantage of it.
Bradley goes north to Queensland for a training camp at the end of June. From there, the final squad will be selected to travel to Florida.
They cut it down again to 20, and from there you go to Barcelona. You play games over there, and then you come home for 2 weeks, I think, and off to Japan.
Until now, Newcastle hasn't been a breeding ground for baseball champions. Bradley, however, is giving the town every chance. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
After just 4 weeks of competition, Group 3 Rugby League officials are looking to iron out some bugs. After the withdrawal of several clubs due to a lack of players, and with more clubs still in the competition struggling, Group 3 is looking at breaking up next year's competition into 2 tiers.
That would mean we're going to try and look after the bottom clubs as well as the top clubs. We appreciate that everybody wants to play rugby league, and it's our responsibility to give them a competition that they can do that successfully in.
The second tier of the competition would only be open to single-grade clubs, and the 2 groups will be chosen on their performance of this year's competition. However, some clubs have indicated they might break away from the Group 3 competition in favour of a pubs competition.
Well, that's always a possibility, and if we don't react to the needs of the clubs, that might materialise, but we believe that we can give them what they want.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Exactly what she did, struggle in that regard to get away. Obviously don't accept any kind of lift from anyone they don't know.
We will certainly be endeavouring to get them to strike. And I normally don't do that, but on this occasion I think this is fundamental to the Australian way of life.
Fighting words from a union leader preparing his troops for war. There'll be plenty of recruits for the first battle, with at least 2,500 workers to lose their jobs within 3 years. A mass meeting of workers in the city tomorrow is expected to endorse strike action. The union says its members have been betrayed by BHP, claiming they were promised secure employment if more steel was produced for less costs.
Productivity, I think it was 175 tonne per man, and they said if you can get to 500 tonne, that'll save Newcastle. Well, we're well over that. We're getting close to 700 tonne per man.
The ACTU hierarchy will meet on Monday as it prepares for a national campaign. Meanwhile, the BHP bandwagon is nearly full. Premier Carr was the first to jump on. Prime Minister Howard also hitched a lift, and today State National Party leader Ian Armstrong climbed aboard in Newcastle. But he had a different target.
The only betrayal has been Mr Carr being asleep to something that everybody else knew. It's the worst kept secret in the stock markets now, as I say, for potentially 12 months.
And late today, the federal government ruled out a special tax-free zone for Newcastle, although it may consider other industry assistance plans. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Like a swarm of angry bees, thousands of workers descended on Dengar Park. The men who face losing their jobs in 3 years, joined by employees of BHP subsidiaries and related industries. Many faces, one voice.
If anyone deserves the sack, it's Mick Neely and his mates on the board for this atrocious decision.
The names of the companies who put the pressure on BHP to close us down, we kicked them in the guts like they kicked us.
Local union leader Maury Rudd is not only fighting for the future of his members, but also for his life. He's been diagnosed with cancer, but hasn't let that stop him from picking up the slingshot in this battle of David versus Goliath. The little Australian trying to take on the company that calls itself the Big Australian.
If you can't run a place like here and make a profit out of that, sack the bums who run the place.
It's a message that workers want to ring out in the boardroom accused of betrayal. But the union says the only way to hurt BHP is to hit it in the back pocket. Members voting unanimously to down tools for 24 hours.
A one-day strike isn't going to change anybody's mind about anything.
The union agrees and is set to intensify its campaign, with the eventual aim of shutting down all BHP businesses unless the decision is reviewed. This could be the first of many rallies around the country. The ACTU will meet on Monday to consider a national campaign.
I'm not scared about it. I hope it doesn't happen.
A public meeting will be held at Newcastle City Hall next Thursday to protest BHP's decision to close the steelworks. There's also a union threat to shut down the city for a day.
If we can't stand united, divided we'll fall.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News. As the fallout from the BHP decision sinks in, a string of politicians has visited Newcastle offering economic solutions for the future. The latest, New South Wales opposition leader Peter Collins sitting down with the Hunters Liberal MPs and Mayor Greg Hees. Like Premier Bob Carr, he's come up with a 5-point plan for recovery. Top of the list is to fill the gaping jobs hole created by the BHP closure with public servants.
You can, with modern communications, I think, decentralise a lot of government jobs, and Newcastle should have its share.
RAF Williamtown is also important, the coalition claiming it will pressure the federal government into setting up Australia's defence headquarters there. The coalition claims the Port of Newcastle should be privatised and expanded into a high-tech container port. Mr Collins has scorned BHP's decision and now wants the Big Australian to hand back and restore what he says is some of the best real estate in Newcastle.
I can tell you there will be no shortcuts. No government, neither the current government nor a future coalition government will allow for any shortcuts if BHP pulls out of Newcastle. There's got to be complete remediation of that site.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
For the first time in more than a decade, the state longboard titles are in Newcastle, but unfortunately the surf didn't rise to the occasion. Competitors battled small conditions, although some sets did reach a metre. 160 of the state's top surfers are involved, entry restricted to those who won pre-selection in regional titles along the coast. The Blue Ribbon 9-foot division started proceedings before the 8-footers fought out their first heats. Defending Australian champion Jason Livingston was one to progress, but the Sydney sider didn't have everything his own way in opening round action. He finished second to North Coast longboarder Darren Symes. First and second round heats continue tomorrow, with semis and finals on Sunday. Up for grabs, trophies and a berth in the 32-man New South Wales squad for the Australian titles in Port Macquarie in August. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
It's a small link in a grand $1.6 billion plan for a non-stop dual carriageway between Sydney and Brisbane. Work on the 40-kilometre stretch between Karua and Bulahdelah will provide 100 jobs and be completed within 5 years.
Motorists, as I say, tourists, truck drivers, this will be a great improvement to road safety and to, of course, the economy of this region.
The new motorway will start at Karua. There's still no word on whether a bypass will be built around the town. A group of residents living just north of Karua took the opportunity to quiz the minister about a quarry to service the roadworks. They claim blasting from the quarry will damage their houses, while dust will harm the environment.
We're really very concerned that this is going to be the end of paradise for us, because that plane's proposed to be working 10 hours a day, 6 days a week.
The residents will lobby the Great Lakes Shire Council to oppose the quarry. The three-day event has always attracted a good crowd, and it was no different this year with a large crowd taking in the exhibits. Traditionally, the Tokal Field Days have concentrated largely on the agricultural sector, but 1997 has seen a slight shift in direction with displays on sustainable products. The Huff and Puff house made of hay bales just one example. Once built, the walls are rendered, making it a cheap alternative to timber and bricks.
We've got a feature on earth building and environmentally friendly living ideas. We have another feature on value adding in primary production, one on quality assurance in the beef industry, and a special feature on farm fencing, including fencing competitions.
Bush Tucker, once considered the exclusive diet of native Australians, also makes an appearance with everything from pasta to tea. Organisers say it's all about educating the public.
What we try and do is introduce people to new ideas, new things that are out in agriculture, show people, give people lectures and demonstrations on how to do different agricultural practices.
The field days continue tomorrow and Sunday.
Several thousand friends and family packed into the university's Great Hall to watch 750 students receive their degrees. Those to graduate today were from the faculties of Architecture, Design, Music, Economics and Law. More than 3,000 students will collect their degrees over the next week. Today was an important day for the university, with the first batch of lawyers to graduate.
We were the guinea pigs, I suppose, and today's the culmination of what was a very big and, it would seem so far, a successful experiment.
A course which treads new ground with new methods of teaching obviously tends to be experimental in some areas, but I understand from people that it's been quite a success.
The law course is the only one in New South Wales where graduates can go straight into practice after their degree. Top student Sally Main was awarded the Evatt Medal in honour of Justice Elizabeth Evatt for her outstanding efforts while at university.
It's been a midlife crisis, a return to university, retraining, and it's been 3 years of sacrifice on my family's part and the beginning of a new career.
And Ken Ningen received a PhD in accounting, becoming the first person from Papua New Guinea to receive an economics degree. Jenny Crouch, NBN News.
They marched in greater number and with more conviction than ever. Trade union officials, workers and their families stung by successive rounds of job cuts on all fronts.
I believe that because of the BHP announcement of over 2,500 jobs has probably added to bringing unity back to the trade union movement.
Decisions on national industrial action against BHP will be made next week. Climaxing with BHP's announcement to quit steelmaking in Newcastle, the past 12 months represent an industrial relations battleground. The worst casualties, workers. The miners' union brought to mind the Gretley tragedy, the maritime union Newcastle's Ship of Shame incident. Teachers, Aborigines, students and the elderly and migrants all feeling the squeeze of federal government cuts. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The Kookaburras entered the match without their Brumby representatives, but if there was any doubt about the club's depth, it was soon dispelled. 5-0, the local crowd was far from impressed, before Christian Taylor's freak individual efforts almost gave Newcastle the equaliser. A Taylor penalty brought it back to 5-3, but Canberra again caught the Wildfires napping to increase their advantage. Then Taylor put his mark on the game again. But it wasn't enough for Newcastle, Canberra running away with the points. And the outstanding Sydney sider made it 5 from 7. Yippee-I-O paid $2.90 and $1.60. Crystal Palace $5 and $45.60 for Mighty Gold. It helped the trifecta topple $6,600. Race 5 at Eagle Farm was the Suburn Heart Stakes over 1,400 metres. $5.40 and $1.70 for Quick Flick. The trifecta, $8.94.90. Racing also today was at Rosehill Gardens in Sydney, where the 6th event on the program was the 1,900 metre Ridges Parramatta Welter Handicap. Two, 1 and 6, the Quinella $9.50 and the trifecta $148.50.
Look here, if you want to know what Cyclone Tracy looked like after it hit, have a look at turn. Here's another one getting the wobbles right in front of our cameras. He's rolling. It's all bang right into the caravans upside down.
Also into the mud heap. It is getting quite boggy in that outside lane. Ground up. Yeah, making up some ground on Redback. Didn't like.
They were comprehensively beaten on the weekend. Today, some were in physio, but the Knights still have their sense of humour.
And they can't afford to drop those sort of points, especially when it's nearly halfway through the season, so it sort of starts getting the nitty-gritty from now on, and and Mark Glenville certainly didn't help the cause.
Mate, well, you just better have a look at the video, really. Bloody wingers.
As Glanville overcame a torn cartilage and Albert a corked elbow, the light-hearted sledging helped ease the pain of Saturday night's loss. The Chargers won by 8 in a match Newcastle expected to win.
It was a very disappointing effort up there, and we have to have a good look at ourselves, and I guess the beauty is too we've got some good players coming back in too.
Andrew Johns is ready to return for the Souths clash. Brother Matthew is an outside chance, while Chief is expected to get the full 80 minutes. Super League and the Hunter Mariners were back at it today after a week's rest due to the split round. After his tragic car accident, Paul Marquette is back to full strength. Pepe passed fit by doctors to play next Monday against Canterbury.
Yeah, it's hard watching it. You don't enjoy sitting up in the stands, you'd rather be out there running around, so yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back out there.
With the Tri-Series continuing on Friday and next Wednesday, both teams' preparation will be hampered, although the Mariners have already learnt a lesson.
Fennell had a few out too, and they steamroll us really, so we'll be prepared.
Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
The strike by thousands of Newcastle steelworkers last Friday could be the sign of things to come, with the ACTU endorsing a strike of all BHP steel operations on May 15. 25,000 workers are expected to join the stoppage, and the ACTU says it could snowball even further to include all BHP companies in Australia.
At the end of the day, we believe we have a responsibility as a union movement to stand up for the rights of the workers and their jobs.
I don't think that's going to help at all in the present circumstances.
The pressure continued on management in Newcastle as hundreds of workers greeted the BHP directors blamed for the decision. The union has satirically dubbed General Manager John Prescott, Brian Lowton and Head of Steel Ron McNeely as the three wise men. But it looked like there'd be no meeting with the elders today. Security guards blocking access to the building, but BHP eventually agreed to talk to a delegation. Meanwhile, attention has turned to how the site will be used in the future. BHP still supports the light manufacturing Steel River proposal. The New South Wales Forest Products Association says a $1 billion pulp and paper mill on the site would create 2,000 jobs, and 5 companies have already shown interest in the project.
We would say that the pollution levels from a pulp and paper mill in Newcastle would be a fraction of the current level of pollution.
I can't see it being too good for the Hunter River, which has already basically had its... the nursery as a prawn nursery, it's no good anymore. They've basically killed that industry. A paper mill would definitely nail that coffin shut.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.